Well, I am sick of having well, it's not, it's not mine, this is a mate's, but we are both sick of having a Jingming M4 Terminator with a select fire switch that is pretty much useless. It actually does work, so that gives you full auto and that gives you semi-auto. However, it's borderline useless. The way it functions is interesting but pointless, particularly when it plays up as much as it does. And I can understand why in the J8 they just pretty much removed select fire altogether and it just became on and off, an on and off switch. So here's how it works in case you are wondering. So you select fire, pushes that piece up there, and that in turn pushes this little piece here. So in the upwardmost position, it's safe, and when you pull that trigger, it does nothing. And in the downwardmost position, it pulls the trigger most of the time, which pulls this switch. And I say most of the time because it's sorry. Okay, so in the downwardmost position, it's actually semi-auto. So it will allow you to pull the switch once, and then it will click over, and then stop, and then you'll have to pull it again. And if this is somewhat halfway in between safe and semi, then it allows you to just pull the trigger down and go full auto. So that'll just, no click. When you're down in semi, clicks, and when you're all the way up in safe, you get nothing. Anyway, the way this works is pretty cool actually. Like, let me open this gearbox up and I'll show you. So the way this works is actually pretty cool. This little black thing down here is actually the switch. When it gets pushed in this direction, it's turned on. When it's in this direction, it's off. There's a spring here, just here, pushing this piece of plastic back against it, so it's always returned to off position. When the trigger is pressed, it pushes this piece of plastic here across, which pushes it to the on position. And then when everything's held together properly, this one pushes it back and switches it back off. So it's a little bit hard to replicate with half a gearbox. But yeah, so this is how it functions, like this. So it's on, that's off, on, off. Okay, now where it gets interesting is this piece here. When the safety is engaged, this piece is actually pushed from the back here upwards, like that. So when the trigger is actually pulled, it misses the switch. So that little black piece in there that would usually be moving like this gets missed, and it doesn't actually pull the switch, so the trigger gets pulled all the way back, but this piece of plastic misses the switch. All well and good. The way the semi-auto function on this works is here. This little rocker arm connects to a cam on this cog. Can you see this cam here? There you go. So there's a cam on the bottom of that cog. And as this cog goes round, you'd imagine if the plunge is here, these gears engage with the gear on the bottom of the plunger. They wind it back. That bit there would wind the plunger back. When it gets to that point, it would release and fly forward. Now, if you watch carefully in here, this rocker, when you turn this gear around, when it gets to the point where it would release the plunger, see that? It pushes this down. See there? And up again and down. So it's just once per revolution, that rocker arm moves. So let's get that out of the way. So once per revolution, this rocker arm goes like that. And what that does is actually pushes down on the back of this switch, which then, when that's pushed down, that pushes this piece up so that the trigger misses the switch. So the way this becomes semi-automatic is every time this fires, the rocker gets pushed down. And if you've got your finger on the trigger, let's assume this is all pushed together. If your finger held down the trigger, the rocker will actually push that up. See that? The rocker pushes that up and it allows the switch to turn off, and the trigger would then have to be reset, released, pushed again to turn on. Then when that rocker comes around again, same thing. Quite ingenious. Now, the problem comes about when the spring you've got inside the plunger and the batteries that you've got aren't powerful enough to wind it back, or for whatever reason, when this thing resets, it resets in a position where the gearbox stops when this cam is up, and you push this up so your switch is always in safety. And it's annoying. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take this rocker off and run it either full auto or off. And that's all we're going to do. So all I'm going to do, take this piece out, take this piece out, and take this little rocker out. And I'm just gonna cut off this end piece where it hits the cam. So it's still going to be able to engage safety from the other side, from the selector switch, but it's just going to completely remove the select fire portion of it. Yeah, I'm just going to cut that off with a pair of side cutters. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this off. Bing. And then put it back in. Alright, now you can see when this spins round, it doesn't hit this at all, so it makes no difference to the trigger mechanism. Now the trigger should, when placed back in here, it should always be in the position to shoot full auto, like that. unless otherwise switched from the switch on the outside of the housing like that. Alright, so I'll put this back together. I will save you the tedium of watching me put it back together. So the blaster's relatively back together. It's like I only got 2 screws in it. But I'll show you what's up here. So blaster's in safe. Nothing happens. Switch it to auto. And we will keep firing auto forever and ever until you let go of that trigger. Switch it to semi and, well, still auto. But you've still got a safe where it won't fire. Basically anything from there onwards is now fully auto. You will now no longer be stuck in a skirmish where you got the drop on someone and you pull the trigger only to have nothing happen because your select fire thing has vibrated out of the semi position, or the selector inside there has popped off the switch for reasons unknown, or your battery didn't quite have enough power to bring that wheel around past the cam up position, and found yourself just with nothing but safety, a box full of neutrals, as they say. Yes, so that is all you got to do. If you've got the old Gen 1 Terminator from Jingming and you're not having a whole heap of success with the select fire switch, just get in there and cut that rocker arm off, because you don't need it. Really, I mean, the J8 box never had select fire to begin with, and everyone loves that box, so, you know, don't get me wrong, I love a select fire, but when you're in a skirmish, it's not something that you use. Select fire is something you use for shooting cans in the garage, but when you're skirmishing, it's auto or nothing. Alright, so hopefully you guys have learned something today. Either that or I'm boring you to death. Alright, either way, like the video for me, subscribe, buy me a coffee, because YouTube's doing nothing for me. Literally. Alright, peace out.